The 18 Strong Podcast, episode number 193 with Daisy May Kenny from Biomek Golf.
Our body's amazing. Our joints alternate between mobile and stable, and we need to keep the mobile joints mobile and the stable joints stable in order for an efficient energy transfer and energy production in the golf swing. If you were to mobilize a stable joint, we've got an injury.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzero.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast. Let me ask you a question. If you're a golfer that has ever experienced pain after playing or during practice, especially if it's back pain, my guess would be that you probably sought out either some sort of relief or you would love to find some sort of relief. And if that solution also helped you improve the way that you move in your golf swing while helping you swing the club faster, I wouldn't think you'd be disappointed in that too much either, would you? All right, well, our guest today, Daisy May Kenny from Biomek Golf, says that all of these things often go hand in hand. After fulfilling her dream of moving from South London to the United States in 2012 on a golf scholarship, Daisy acquired her bachelor's and master's degree while contributing to multiple research studies on the golf swing. She has since presented her research at several major events and organizations, including the Olympic World Conference for Prevention of Injury and Illness, the PGA Show, and even for the Yankees organization. Once Daisy realized the positive effect that physical training had had on her own golf game, she started down this path of learning and eventually creating Biomek Golf, which is an educational platform for golf professionals and fitness coaches. Recently, Daisy has joined the Super Speed Golf team as their Director of Education and is an advisor for the Body Track Sports team. Today, Daisy's going to help explain how and why it's so important that specific areas of your body, especially your hips, your upper back, are moving well in order to create a more powerful and pain-free swing. So if you struggle with back pain or lack of flexibility that's causing trouble in your golf swing, then this episode is absolutely for you. And also, this is probably a great time to remind you that if you are struggling and you're looking for a simple step-by-step plan to follow to get you moving, feeling, and playing better, we here at 18 Strong have a definite solution for you. Our 8-week online program, the Golf Body Blueprint, could be just the thing that you're looking for. We've had hundreds of golfers now join the program and are getting some incredible results. So whether your goal is to move better, shed a few pounds, or just simply increase your swing speed, we've seen it all with this very simple to follow plan. It's all laid out with over 80 videos, tracking sheets, a monthly calendar, and much more. So just go to golfbodyblueprint.com and you can check it all out there. All right, let's get to our chat with Daisy May Kenny. Give me a little background on you, just what brought you to the States, because I know you grew up in South London. So when did you come over? Why did you come over? And we'll kind of move on from there.
So I came over in 2012. I actually came out here a semester late. I took a semester to figure out where I was going to go, and I was deciding between the UK and America, and I was like, I've just got to do it. I've just got to go to the USA. So came out here on a golf scholarship to West Florida, and I did my undergraduate degree in exercise science. And during my undergrad degree, I did lots of research in the biomechanics lab. I started 2 studies that were basically intervention oriented. So I would design a different workout regimen and have them go through that and test them before and after. That kind of sparked my passion for the human body and also how that integrates in the golf game. From there, I stayed on and did my master's. I just graduated. Congrats. And thank you. And I continued to do more research, and I took that research and presented at the International Olympic Conference for injury prevention, which was really, really awesome. That kind of picked the passion up again and just got the ball rolling. And then started doing some research for Super Speed at graduate school. And from them, they were really, really supportive and helpful with the research, and also supporting me with my own business on the side as well. So they've sort of given me some opportunities that are really good. And they're a smart bunch of guys, so it's all good. And so now what I'm doing is I created my own company, Biomek Golf. And what that is essentially specializing in golf fitness and golf biomechanics. So I started out, I got TPI certified, and that gave me a lot of knowledge with regards to relating how the body correlates with swing faults. And from there, I essentially took all that information and tried to figure out what we're missing in this industry. What everyone knows all these things, but where can we go to really find the true answers to some of these problems that we're facing? Specifically injuries. So I really have a passion for preventing injuries, specifically lower back, and everything around the lower back affects it. So I had to study hard and research into the materials to try and figure out what no one else has. So it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, it's definitely a constant process of learning and trying to figure out, all the missing pieces. What was your presentation for, or what was the content of your presentation at the Olympic World Conference?
So that was a intervention that I designed in accordance with some of the TPI exercises, just generally trying to get a full body workout with a balance of mobility and stability and plyometrics. I know that other researchers found positive results, and so really looking at the time frame to see how long it takes to get those positive effects. So I did a 10-week version and an 8-week version, and both gave me good results. So now I think the space or where someone else can come in and do some research is to figure out how soon can you see results, 2-3 weeks, I think for the neural stimulation, the overspeed training, we can see it happen as little as 3 to 4 weeks, permanent changes. So there's lots more research that needs to be done, but I did a little bit of it.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about the back pain stuff, because as you know, we had Dr. Stu McGill on recently, and man, we got so many great questions that came out of that interview, and so many people talking about, first of all, maybe their back pain that they have as golfers, but also what are the right things and the wrong things to do. What are some of the most dominant things that you find have the biggest effect on people that maybe come to you or talk about back pain, basically that occurs during their round of golf?
Yeah, so normally when players come to me, the first thing I do is I'll screen them, and I'll see some tendencies, especially with those that struggle with their hip mobility and their thoracic spine mobility. So from now on, I'm just going to term thoracic spine as T-spine for short, okay? So hip mobility and T-spine mobility, those are the ones that really highlight red lights. We've got some inefficiencies there. And at the end of the screen, I ask them, do you suffer with lower back pain when you play? And 95% of the time, it's always yes, I do. Actually, I am right now. How did you know that? So I've been seeing a high correlation between hip mobility issues and T-spine issues, but that's not to say that they're the only things that can cause lower back. I've just seen that with my clients.
Gotcha. I find that, I see the same thing with the clients that I'm working with, and, with all the different clinicians that we're in contact with, I think we all kind of see very similar results. And it's fun. I think you probably know we have this Mobility May going on, which is kind of our Instagram post where we're highlighting a lot of different professionals and even golfers or whoever wants to contribute, but different mobility exercises or things that they've done to help work on their own bodies. But it seems like so many of them revolve around the hips. Everybody's kind of working on their hip stuff and a lot of thoracic spine things. What are some of the best ways to really gain long-term mobilizing effects on, let's go with the hips? There's so many different exercises that people can see and watch, but a lot of times it's hard to determine, like, okay, that looks like a cool exercise, but how do I actually implement it effectively? What are some of the best protocols or ways that you find to go about creating actual lasting change in some of these different areas?
Yeah, I think the issue that everyone has is the fact that they just don't have enough time in the day. Mm-hmm. And so I find that finding exercises that kill a lot of birds with one stone is the best way to go about it. Instead of prescribing 5 different exercises, I've managed to find one exercise maybe that hits all those 5 points. And then I like to call them the everyday essentials. So when I see those red lights, so if it's the hips or if it's the T-spine, whatever it is, it could be the wrist, ankles, I want to make sure that that's targeted in their everyday essentials. And that could be 5 to 10 minutes stretching each evening, or just some stabilization using some resistance bands. But you want to make sure that those red lights are being taken care of every day and give a lot of attention to them so that they don't eventually lead to injuries.
And so would you recommend doing like a small little routine in the morning, routine in the evening also? And that's just kind of almost like brushing your teeth. I've heard many people talk about it that way. Like we brush our teeth, hopefully every morning and every evening. But doing kind of the same thing for our body to make sure that it stays healthy. And I like to call it the daily motion routine or daily flow or whatever. But it sounds like we're on the same page here of tying in those little bitty pieces. And it can be very simple stuff. It can be, just like joint circles or things like that. Are there like a couple of your favorites that you recommend people go to, let's say for the hips and for the T-spine?
Yeah, my favorite for the hips is the 90-90s. So they're just, there's so many different variations of the hip 90-90s, but I like to do the lowering eventually if they can sit up properly. And then once they can do the lowering, I like to do the front foot lifting and back foot lifting to see if they can do it. If most people can't actually do it. So that's just a starting point. And I love that exercise because it has so many progressions. So you can start with that exercise and progress over time every day. And they can see the benefits as well. So as you do it every day, you start to see you can get a little lower or you can move a little further. And that's my favorite for the hips, for sure. If you only have 5 minutes in a day to do some preventative or some injury preventative exercises, hip 90-90 is 100%. My favorite for T-spine, a big thing with T-spine is that you'll see better results if you go through extension and flexion before rotation. So I like just the cobra to child's pose. It's a yogi move, but I really like that first, or cats and dogs, those sort of movements, just the flexion and extension of the spine. And then going into some rotations, and I just like the standard T-spine rotations where your knees are on the floor, your butt's in your heels. You place one hand out in front of you and you rotate and exhale as you rotate, keeping your eyes on the elbow. Those sort of cues are really important. And again, you can see quick results just doing those small things every day.
Let's kind of explain a little bit, if you could, why are the T-spine and the hips? Because we started talking about back pain and how back pain is really affected by these different areas. But let's break down what's actually happening in the body, where if your T-spine or your hips aren't working properly, how does that really affect your back in your golf swing? Yeah,
so for all the listeners out there right now, if you just stand up and look at your body, starting at the wrist, you can move that wrist 360 degrees around in a circle. So that joint is mobile. The next joint, the elbow, you don't want that guy to move 360. It's only moving in that one plane. And so that's a stable joint. And the next one, the shoulder, again, if you move your arm around in a big circle, you've got 360 degrees. So it's mobile. So what I'm trying to get at here is our body's amazing. Our joints alternate between mobile and stable. And we need to keep the mobile joints mobile and the stable joints stable in order for an efficient energy transfer and energy production in the golf swing. And also, what happens is if you were to mobilize a stable joint, we've got an injury. Now, the lumbar spine, the lower back, we'll refer to it from now on, is supposed to be stable. Your hips are the neighboring joint, they're mobile, and the T-spine is the other neighbor, and they're supposed to be mobile too. And what happens is, as you play, the repetitiveness of the golf swing, you get built up scar tissue, and you get restrictions in mobility in those areas, which causes your body to say, okay, right, I can't move this guy, or this guy, my spine or my hips. So guess what? My lumbar spine is going to have to move. Now, the issue is if you can't move your hips or your T-spine, you're going to have swing faults. There's going to be some funky things going on there. And that's when we come into injuries. So you want to make sure that you keep your mobile joints, the range of motion efficient, and your stable muscles need to be able to stabilize that movement to prevent the injury. So a good balance of both will ensure that you can prevent lower back injuries.
Tell me a little bit more about the scar tissue buildup in some of those areas. So you're saying in the thoracic spine, in the hip, because of all the repetitive rotation that we go through, and typically only in one direction for most of us, we start to build up scar tissue that ends up really restricting what we're doing there. And then, so it's really like the low back is taking up has to start to take up the brunt of the work because those things aren't moving as well anymore.
Yeah. And I think the hips are such a key component of the golf swing. And I think that if they aren't moving, then you're not going to create any energy in your swing. So you really need to make sure that they're mobile so that you can turn, essentially. If you can't turn into your backswing or your downswing, then your lumbar spine, the lower back, compensates. And everyone complains of lower back injuries. It could be caused by a lack of mobility in the hips or the T-spine. It could be due to numerous other reasons. But just for today, we're going to look at the hips and the T-spine and how they affect the lower back.
Well, I think what's also interesting is that you mentioned that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of golfers that have pain, but even for those that don't experience pain, I think it's important to emphasize that this is still very important for you if you're a golfer that doesn't have pain because of the swing faults also. There's so many times we go take a lesson or we're out on the course and you just can't get your body to do what your brain is trying to tell it to do. And sometimes it's because we just don't understand that we have these restrictions. What are some of the common things that you see in a swing or maybe in ball flight from somebody that isn't moving well at their hips or their T-spine?
So for your hips, you're going to see swaying and sliding. And especially in today's environment we live in, we sit down, we go to work, we sit down, we get in our car, we sit down. And so our hips are just so immobilized. And you'll see this tendency, especially in middle-aged to older men who in that sedentary lifestyle, the sway and slide. Because of that, you'll also get a loss of posture. Sometimes you can see reverse spine at the top of the backswing, which will then cause hanging back. So it's a lot of cause and effect. But one thing I want you guys to imagine in your head here at the lower back, if you were to imagine Lego bricks stacked up on top of each other, and you're holding that tower of Legos, and if you bent that Lego tower side to side, it's going to have so much motion. But if you bend it towards the side and then twist it, rotate it, those two corners of those bricks are going to hit each other. And that's what causes those niggly lower back pains and herniated lower discs. So the problem is our discs, they have this spongy elastic material and it degenerates over time. So for those of you that think you've got no pain now, well, eventually down the line, it's going to come to you and it doesn't feel good at all. I can tell you that from experience. So the key is to prevent it before it happens and prevent your body from going through the stress. And it just can only take 5 minutes a day to be able to do that.
Let me jump in and say a quick thanks to our sponsor for this week's episode, Rad Roller. If you haven't checked out Rad Roller, go to radroller.com where they make some incredible products that are going to help you move better, just like we're talking about in this episode. And actually, you might hear me talk about the golf trip that I went on recently where the Rad Roller really kind of saved us. We were all kind of getting ready for our round of golf in the morning, and one of my buddies was telling me how he struggles with some foot issues, and he's constantly, on his feet wearing dress shoes. He recently got a standing desk, but now notices that he's got some pain in the bottom of his foot on a regular basis. So I busted out the Rad Roller that I had in my bag for the trip, and he started rolling around on it and said it felt great and really got him moving a little bit better and was able to get him through the round because we actually had to walk the round in the afternoon that day. And so he immediately came home, got online, ordered the Rad Roller, the Rad Round is what it was, and got one sent to him immediately. Of course, using the 18 Strong code to get a discount. So if you haven't checked out any of the Rad Roller products, go for it. Go to radroller.com. You won't be disappointed. They've got a piece of equipment for everything you need. They've got the Rad Helix. They've got the Rad Rod, the Rad Rounds, all these different products to hit the different areas of your body to get you moving better, just like Daisy's talking about, in order to help you, use your body better in your swing and not put stresses in areas that we don't want to put stress on. So again, go to radroller.com and use the code 18Strong. You know, it's funny. I was just on a little golf trip this past week, and for any of you guys that saw on Instagram, it was like a 40th birthday golf trip. So, you know, I've officially become an old man this past week. And it was me and three of my buddies from high school and college, and we went down to Branson, Missouri, which is a phenomenal facility for anybody listening that is heading to the Midwest for golf. But it was really funny how golf trips and just trips with my buddies have changed in general. We're there like Thursday morning getting ready for our round, and one of my buddies pulls out his foam roller and he's rolling around in the middle of the floor. The other guys, I've got one of the rad roller balls and they're rolling it around on their feet. I'm showing them all this stuff. I'm like, man, how old have we gotten? And you know, all these guys sit at a desk a lot, so they're constantly peppering me with questions on, you know, what can I do for this? How do I get better posture in my swing? How do I prevent, you know, my hamstrings from getting so tight? And so for the younger golfers that are listening to this podcast, I would urge, like Daisy just said, you know, start working on this stuff now so you don't turn into an old man like us where you have to start worrying about this stuff and try to figure out how to fix what's already gone wrong. But for those that are kind of experiencing this kind of stuff and are even in later stages of life, it's not too late to start doing this stuff too, to start making some changes. So when you're working with clients or have worked with clients in the past, I'm sure that you've had people come to you who, you know, they maybe think that, okay, my golf game is just going downhill and it's just how it is because I'm getting older. What would you say to that person who kind of feels like they've got all these restrictions, they've been at a desk for forever? What can they start doing immediately along with these, you know, kind of daily essentials? What would you say to that person that kind of thinks hope is lost?
Yeah, I've come across so many of those people, you know, oh, I'm too old for this. I don't need that anymore. I'm past my days. But you still get up on the first tee every weekend and you want to beat your mate. So,
right.
You know, the competitiveness is still there. And I'd just say, don't ever give in just because you're older, you know. And I've taken people who are seriously bad mobility, like no movement at all, just from doing 10 minutes a day, along with their regular workout regimen. I've taken them from what you would score probably a 2 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10 in just 2 months. So especially during the off season, you know, during the winter months, if you're living up north, take that time where you can't beat balls to work on your body for the season. And it really, you can do it in the comfort of your own home as well. A lot of people get embarrassed doing things in front of others. So there's a lot of things you can do here at your desk. You know, I'm sitting here right now and I've got my foot on my knee and I'm stretching. Other things I recommend if you're someone who works at a desk all day is to vary what you're sitting on. So sit on a yoga ball, something that's soft, or go into a half kneeling position at your desk, stretch out those hip flexors. And there's tons of little things that you can be doing every day. And for sure, don't ever give up because it's not over.
Well, yeah, like you said, I mean, you're still going out there, you're still teeing it up, you still want to beat your buddies. So,
yeah,
you know, you're going to have just that slight little edge if you're doing some of this stuff and they're not doing any of it. So,
yeah, exactly.
There's definitely
beauty of golf. The beauty of the game of golf, we can play until we're really old, but you can't play if you injure yourself. So, the longevity and enjoyment of the game, you need to protect your spine.
Absolutely. One of the things that I noticed when I was kind of doing a little research on you and Biomek, you mentioned in either on your website or one of the videos, kind of the stress that the golf swing or really the impact of the golf swing puts on the spine. I'd like for you to talk a little bit about that, and then why something like a super speed golf and practicing with something like that is, you know, obviously specific, but even a little safer for, you know, that repetitive motion.
Yeah, so while I was doing my research, I was looking into other research, and something that really surprised me, I was blown away, was that every time we make contact with the golf ball, research has shown that the impact force on our lower back is the same as a linebacker in a tackle in American football.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I was like, that's insane. And so I was like, we're doing that every single time we beat a golf ball, right? And if you've got some sort of issue and your lumbar spine, your lower back's rotating in the wrong way, you're really going to put yourself at harm there for intense force at an angle. So those Lego bricks again, that analogy, if you imagine those corners pointing into each other sharp, and in conjunction with that force, it's going to do a lot of damage and we'll get herniated discs. So one thing I really recommend is to train without hitting golf balls. You know, everyone thinks, oh, I've played really badly. Let me go to the driving range and beat 150 balls, 100 balls. I'm like, that's the worst thing you can do. You know, you quality practice. You want to practice with good techniques and good things. And also, you want to practice on those mechanics, but you don't always have to hit a ball. You know, sometimes people hit into a net. It's like, what's the point? You may as well not even hit a ball. But beauty of super speed is that you're working on your body by training both sides of your body. For those of you out there who are super speed users, I'm sure you're familiar with our protocols, but we also include non-dominant side training. And when you do it, you'll feel your body stretched in ways you've never felt before. It feels funny the first few times you swing on your non-dominant side, but after a while, that will create a balance in your body, which is one of the strongest things that we can offer from a product, a training regimen that protects your lower back. So in combination with not hitting balls and doing that reverse side training to create a balance in the body, you can prevent those impact forces on your lower back. So 100% coaches out there who are listening, if you have players that have some swing faults or some funky things going on physically, definitely try and recommend working on the mechanics without hitting a ball. Incorporate some super speed training. We have some really great drills that can help with swing mechanics, as well as ground force production. And these are all really important things to help your players improve over time. So yeah, the super speed's a great way to protect the lower back for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, that study that shows the impact is as much as, you know, being in an American football game. And you wonder if those are all, you know, maybe tour players hitting or whatever it is, because I go to the driving range and, you know, if I'm swinging or I'm watching some of my buddies swing, a lot of times we're hitting the ground in not great positions either. So that impact could be way more than a car wreck possibly, or, you know, getting tackled by a linebacker. But so you're doing a lot of work with super speed these days, and I know that you're kind of in charge of a lot of the research, but you're also working with another friend of ours at Body Tracks. So kind of tell me how you're kind of tying the two of these together, because I know you're doing some research with both of them, and I want to then kind of tie in how the ground mechanics and all this stuff also plays into the mobility side and you know, the mechanics of the swing.
Yeah, so talking ground mechanics, the Body Track is a force and pressure map that, you know, it calculates how much vertical force you're applying and also traces where your center of pressure is. So center of pressure is just a fancy term for the average location of force. And that trace will trace along with where you're moving. Now, I wanted to use the Body Track to see if super speed training had an effect on the ground mechanics. And we did see some differences. They weren't significant, but we did see some slight differences. One thing we saw with a couple of players, more the elite players, was an increase in center of pressure velocity. And that is essentially how quickly you're shifting that weight back over to the other side. But the reason why you're increasing that center of pressure velocity may not necessarily be because you're producing more ground force, but because you've increased the rate that your muscles can activate. You've basically increased the rate at which you're turning those muscles on, and then now they can move faster. So I'm a complete nerd when it comes to ground mechanics. I love it. But one thing I did notice is that there wasn't a significant effect on anything to do with the ground after using super speed, which is really interesting because you do see some differences. It changes person to person. But one thing with the super speed is that we're really looking at the other end of the spectrum here. We're looking at the brain. So how quickly the brain can turn on the muscles, and by using lighter sticks, lighter clubs, you can swing it faster naturally. So for years, you've been going up onto the tee box, sticking two clubs together and swinging them, right? Everyone thinks that that's a good warm-up, but it's actually going to slow you down. Anything heavier than 5% is really detrimental to your swing mechanics. And that can cause lower back injuries. So it's really important to know not to put those two clubs together for a warm-up. You want to increase the rate that your muscles are firing, or they're activating. And super speed does that really well because of the overspeed concept.
What about, so, I have, and you see them on tour all over the place, the orange whip, which I use on a regular basis. And I'll use that to warm up, but it's a heavier, utility. It's a little more flimsy. And I was just having a conversation with somebody today about, whether that's good to use or not to use. And for me personally, I kind of like how it just works with just nice and slow, going through some swings, creating a little bit of sequencing. But then if I were to use that, would it be beneficial to then maybe grab like the green super speed club and do some fast swings after doing that? Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I like the orange whip. I think it's a great tool, and thousands of people out there are using it as a warm up because, as you say, you can feel the momentum, you can feel the sequencing. But one thing you want to make sure that you're doing is a combination of strengthening, so that you feel how that orange whip's a bit heavier. Mm-hmm. You want to do a combination of strengthening and fast movements. So it's getting your muscles ready for performing. So, it's all very well having them being very strong, but as you and I know, strong isn't necessarily fast. Mm-hmm. So it's important to do a combination of both. And I think in my eyes, there would be no problem with doing some orange whip swings and then moving into our super speed warm up, which we'll be releasing soon, along with some other new protocols as well to help with ground mechanics.
Very cool. Yeah, I've gotten the question so many times. People email me like, "Hey Jeff, should I do the orange whip or should I do the super speed?" And I'm like, well, really, they're two way different things.
They are.
So I think that helps kind of clarify that a little bit. So going back to your ground mechanics nerdness, I'd like to kind of find out, for the average golfer, what are the basics of ground mechanics that they should really kind of understand? I know everybody's footwork is a little bit different, but what are some of the things or commonalities that people should know or understand when they're, even talking about ground mechanics or talking about their own golf swing?
I think the main thing, if I was to, pick one main concept, would be just the exchange in pressure, that load and explode concept. And when you're looking at a player on 2D video, you think you can see what's going on. You think, oh yeah, they look like they've transferred their pressure or their weight into their trail side and back through to their left. But realistically, if you get them on to something that can actually measure those variables, you might see otherwise. I've definitely seen otherwise, surprisingly. With myself, actually, when I first got on the body track, I really wasn't loading enough into my trail side. And many coaches out there know that it's important to get them to load into that right hip, that right side, before they then move into the left hip and get that pressure ball moving through towards a target. So yeah, one thing, if you're going to work on ground mechanics, is to try and ensure that your players transferring their pressure from trail to lead, from the backswing to downswing. That'd be the key component there.
Cool. I'm sure that as you watch on Sundays or you watch golf every weekend, you're constantly watching guys and girls' foot mechanics and what's going on in their feet. Who are some of the craziest footwork swings that we need to watch?
Well, I think the most questions I get is about like Justin Thomas jumping in the air. I get a lot of people saying, well, is that wrong? Is that bad? He's jumping in the air. It's just a common tendency for guys that are lighter in body weight. They tend to jump off the ground because they're producing so much ground force that they're actually pushing themselves off the ground. So I think that you see a lot of different tendencies, footwork. As you said, you've got players that come out into their toes, into triple extension and almost come off the ground. You've got some players that wind that pressure right into that left heel, and then their left toe comes up in the air and sort of twists out to the left, One thing that I do see, though, is that can get too much, especially in juniors. Coaches out there, you'll probably see that jumping and that lifting and turning of that left foot, especially in the long drive players as well, you'll see it. it's can almost go too far and be determined as a lack of stabilization. So that's why, again, those non-dominant sides is so important. You wouldn't go into the gym and do 10 bicep curls on your right and not on your left, you know? So why do we hit so many golf balls right-handed and not left, you know? So you can see all these tendencies in the ground mechanics, but they're all caused by physical issues that are going on, and how that player as an individual has to overcome that to get the best result. So everyone's ground mechanics is different because we're all anatomically different. And it's about finding and screening each individual and figuring out what might be the problem that's causing that deficiency in transfer of pressure, and then eradicating that with some quick exercises every day, and then seeing improvements in performance. So it's all about the process, and having a team of individuals who are all talking and communicating all the issues that the player has, and all working together with a common goal.
Yeah, I think that's where that's the puzzle piece. That's the cool part that it seems like you love to put together and kind of see those different little things and what's the connection that we can make. Is that groundwork, is that good? Is that bad? Is it something we need to fix? Is it something we need to let go? And those are tough questions to answer sometimes. But once you go through those screens, I know that makes it that much easier to kind of figure out, okay, what do we need to work on? What do we not need to work on? And where can you best spend your time with that golfer? That's awesome. So give us a little idea of what your week looks like these days. I know you were doing more kind of individualized training, but now you've kind of moved over to working with Super Speed. You're doing some consulting with working with coaches. What does a typical week look like for Daisy May?
So recently I just graduated, so it's been a bit hectic, but I've actually been working on the new Super Speed certification. So I've created 3 levels that will be released soon. We're about to do some videoing here. And I'm really excited about that. It's got some awesome content out there that's really easy to understand for, the professional coaches. And we've really taken some new concepts that really, I feel like Super Speed has dominated in the industry because no one else has taken on the concept of overspeed training. And it's a new thing, and everyone's like, wow, how does it work? So we've really taken the time to try and help make this really clear and explain what's going on, how to use it, how to apply it with your players, how to create, a year's timeline of training for your player, and answer all the questions that we've been getting from the teaching professionals.
That's awesome.
Other than that, I've been doing some advising work for Body Track. And I've been helping them with content. So interpreting the data, how then it's all very well to be able to see the data, interpret it, but how do you apply that and how do you fix it, So I've really just been trying to tie the dot for the customers and the clients in order to help them understand better how to apply this knowledge with their players in a non-intimidating way that helps the player understand what's going on between them and the ground.
Very cool. When can we expect some of the Super Speed, the warm-up stuff to come out and the certification program?
Yes, we've got a couple of new protocols, a warm-up, and we've really solidified everything into play. So you should be expecting that within the next 3 months, 2 to 3 months. It's going to be exciting.
Cool. Looking forward to that for sure. All right, Daisy, before we let you go, we got to ask you a few finalized questions here. So,
all right.
First one, are you more of a Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore fan?
Happy Gilmore, because Adam Sandler is my G. He's such a legend.
Oh, man. Adam Sandler was, same here, was my guy, like Billy Madison, all those movies growing up. Just the man. So
yeah,
excellent answer.
Exactly.
All right, if you could pick a walk-up song to the first tee box, what is it?
All right, so my walk-up song would be Black Beatles by Ray Shremmerd and Gucci Mane, in hopes that everyone would stand still and be quiet for once.
Nice. I love it. If you could play 18 holes of golf with anyone in the world, past or present, who would it be and where would you play?
I would love to play a game of golf with Michelle Wee so we can discuss hair colour and flat bills. And we would play at my home course in England. It's called Prince's Golf Club out on the East Coast. And the reason why I choose to play there is because I want to see how she would deal with the windy links. And I think it would be a fun time with the English pubs and fish and chips.
I think that'd be a fun little one to be a fly on the wall and to see the shoe game and the hat game that's going on in that round. All right, what has you most excited about where you are? What's going on with everything with Biomek Golf, and what can we kind of expect in the next several months coming out from Biomek? Not necessarily from Super Speed or Body Tracks, but with you personally.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about presenting at a few events and just gaining the exposure and just people being aware of who I am and what I do, and that I'm really, really wanting to help people learn and understand these tricky concepts. So I'm really excited about that in general. Other than that, I'm doing my own personal research using super speed and different exercises using something called electromyography, which is shortened to EMGs. So I really want to get a deeper look into the muscle and what's happening inside the body, rather than just trying to analyze it using, kinetic variables like the ground or kinematics, so 3D kinematics. I really want to look inside the muscle and see what's happening there. So I'm really excited about doing some of that research and trying to find out some new concepts to share with you all.
I love it. You just took me back to my capstone presentation in physical therapy school where we were doing EMG studies of the rotator cuff and all this stuff. I just had a crazy little flashback there. Well, any last piece of advice for the 18 Strong community before we let you go?
Reiterate that 10 minutes a day can really make a change and prevent your injuries and keep you playing for a lot more years than you'd expect. So those small things, small changes can make a big impact on your game.
Fantastic. Daisy, I want to thank you for your time and continue to do the great work you're doing. We look forward to all the research and all the new stuff that you guys have coming out in the very near future. And I'm sure we'll be talking much more in the upcoming months for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Thanks for joining us this week on the 18 Strong podcast. If you have any questions about what we talked about in this episode, or you want to find more information on Daisy and Biomek Golf, you can, of course, go to 18strong.com and look up episode number 193. We'll have all the links to Daisy's social media and her website and everything there. Once again, I want to say thanks to our sponsors for this week's episode, Rad Roller. Go to radroller.com and be sure to use the code 18strong. And again, if you're looking for a program, a plan, a blueprint to get you going, to get your body doing what you need it to do, or to just look better, feel better, and move better out on the golf course, we've got you covered here at 18 Strong. Go to golfbodyblueprint.com and you can check out the program there. It's 8 weeks of online training. Everything's laid out for you step by step, very easy to follow, and we're getting great results. So go check that out. All right, we'll catch up with you next week. Train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.